Hello, Marshall from Lockdown Studios. Welcome to today's video. Alright, so today's video we'll be using Blender to model this couch. This is the final product, and if you follow along, hopefully by the end of the video you'll have something that looks similar to this or probably even better. Alright, so there's a lot of ways to model and sculpt. So I decided to make a 3-part series and then we can showcase all the different methods. Today's video we'll mostly be using the traditional way to model and sculpt, and then we'll also be using Substance Painter for the textures, so I'll show you how to import those textures after we do that. And then in the next video we'll be using Cloth Tools, so hit the notification bell and get notified as soon as that one drops. If you're not subscribed yet, please do so now. It really helps the channel. And if you are subscribed, leave a comment and hit the like button the same way you hit the undo button. Firstly, when it comes to modeling anything specific, especially furniture, it's best to get some reference images. You can search on the internet for different images of furniture and you might get some good results. Even better yet, you can go to a furniture website. I got these ones from IKEA. Usually they'll have a lot of references, as you can see here, and best of all, they provide you the dimensions. Alright, so that just takes all the guessing work out of it, and you don't have to sit and guess the dimensions throughout the modeling stage. I'm using PRF for my reference images, and it just makes it a lot easier to use than to have a lot of tabs open or to have your Blender scene flooded with reference images. It's easy to move around. You can select different images, move them around, zoom in and out, and yeah, it just makes it much easier. I can also move this to a different screen when I need to, which I'm going to do shortly. I'll put this image as a reference on Blender so you can follow along, and yeah, let's get started. So I'm going to move this to a different screen. Alright, so once you're in your Blender scene, you can open a new project, and we're just going to delete all these startup items. And first, let's add that reference image. And just select reference and select your image. And I'm just going to move this out of the way. For now, maybe just scale it up a bit so we can follow along. Just move that backwards. All these parts are made up out of cubes, so I'm going to start with a cube, so we can just add a cube there. And then just follow these dimensions, so 15 centimeter there. Let's see which one's that. Yeah, 0.15. For the height, we've got 71 centimeter. And then for that width there, we've got 98 centimeter. So I can just add everything in there, and then of course we can just add the scale. Alright, so next we're going to do the base. That's also just another cube. So we can just add another cube here. And then for this one that I mentioned, for the width, it's going to be 2.11. Scale on the X is going to be the same as the armrest. So it's 0.98. And for the height on this, it's going to be 48 centimeter from the base until the top of the pillow. So I'm just going to take more or less half of it. I'll say 28. 28 on the base. And then the rest we're going to allocate for the pillows. There we go. And now for the other armrest, it's going to be the same. So I'm first going to model this one, and then we can just duplicate it for the other side. Alright, let's just start by moving this in place. I've got my snapping on and aligned to the edge. So with that selected, we can just G to move that. It will snap automatically, and as you can see, perfectly aligned. Alright, so let's do the back part now. I'm just going to duplicate this one. Just grab that to the top, and go to face edit and just drag that down till it snaps to that edge. And then the width of it, as you can see, yeah, there's no allocation for that. So I think it's just going to be more or less half of what armrest should be. As you can see there, it looks quite a bit thinner than the armrest, so I'm just going to go with half that size. And turn off snapping. And let's just move that face inwards. So more or less there. And of course, usually these have a bit of a slope, so I'm just going to add in that slope already. There we go. Alright, so now the cushions for the backrest has something to lay against. Now we can just add the pillows as well. So I'm just going to add another cube of what we had there, which is 20. So 0.2. That should be perfect. And the size for this is going to go right until the back. So we can just go into edit mode, select the face, and just slide that inwards. Alright, for the width of it, it's just going to be basically the size of this divided by 3, which is about 7. Yeah, it's going to be probably around 70. So let's just add that. Let's just go back to object mode, select the object, and 0.7. So that should then fill the space if we duplicate this. Alright, so now that you have all the dimensions sorted, I'm gonna delete the reference image. And then we can start to actually model the couch. So we need something that looks more or less like this. As you can see here, most of this we can achieve by using a bevel. So we can use a bevel on the seats, we can use it on the base and on the armrest as well, and on the backrest. As you can see here, we're gonna have to do some sculpting to get that in, and we've got a little bit of beading that runs through. So we're gonna add that in as well. Alright, so let's start with the armrest. As we can see from the reference image, we've got a bit more roundness on the top and then a smaller bevel on the bottom and on the edges. And on the base, we've got a little bit of a bevel as well. So I think we can just use bevels on all these and of course on the back part as well. Just make sure to apply the scale on all your objects. This will just help with the beveling. Alright, let's start with the armrest. And we can go to the edge mode. And I'm just going to add a couple of loops in here. Just going to keep it the same width as this one. So we can just add those cuts in. And the same here. That should be fine. Alright, so we just have extra geometry just to keep everything intact. And now we can select these two edges. They're going to be beveled the most. And just add a few loop cuts here. I think 7 should be fine for this. We want it quite smooth. So let's see. Right around. Not too aggressive, just like that. And then we can select all the other edges. They also have a bevel, so just select the edges. Just make sure you select everyone. And then this is going to be a bevel. However, this is going to be a bit smaller than the previous one. I think about 3 cuts and more or less there. So now you can see we've got the armrest basically almost complete. Alright, so let's do the base next. There's also just a bevel. However, this will be a bevel for the whole base. So we can just go to face mode. Everything is selected. If nothing is selected, just hit A. Select everything. And we can just run a bevel on this. Just a small bevel, 3 segments should be fine. And for this one as well, we're going to just add a couple of cuts in. Just so we have nice stability and geometry to work with. Now let's first do the backrest. And that's also just a bevel. So I can go to edge. And I believe we can select all the edges. And just run a small bevel there. Okay, so let's do the pillow here. So just go to face select mode. Select the top face. And we can just bevel this down a bit. And add a few cuts in. Alright, right about there is good. And I'm just gonna add a few loops here. As we are gonna be sculpting on this, so it's best to have as much geometry as you can. Alright, so back in object mode, let's shade smooth this. As you can see, it already starting to look like a pillow. However, we'll achieve much more realism once we do sculpting. And for this, I'm just going to add a subdivision surface as well. And I think we can just leave it at 1. Let's do 1 segment for now and just apply this. As you can see that it's added. Alright, so for this one, let's go to sculpt mode. And in sculpt mode, I'm not going to be using the cloth tools or the cloth simulation tools that we have here. Alright, I'm just going to hit the smooth brush, just take the smoothness down a bit. And I'm just going to smooth out these edges just a bit. And we're not going to be seeing this part, so I'm not going to spend too much time on sculpting that. And I'm just going to use the inflate as well. And just make the radius a bit larger. Let's see. Alright, so I'm just going to add some variation, just clicking and dragging around it. And then, of course, you can also use control click, and that will just invert what you have going on there, so it will more or less deflate instead of inflate. And then shift click just to smooth out. Okay, so we've got the first one done for now. Next, let's move on to the second one. So we're just going to go back into object mode. And let's just duplicate this 2 times. Just duplicate. And then we're just going to go back to sculpt mode again for each one of them. And just create a bit of variation on them. Okay, so yeah, there you go. We can just go back to object mode again. So let's start with the beading on this. So we just select one of them. Let's go to, sorry, just go to edge select tool. So to do that, we can just select the parts that we need to be doing. So I think around there is fine. And then we've got one running down the side again. And one through the bottom here. So let's just add that. And it will go all the way up to the top again. Again, we're not going to see the back part, so there's no use actually sculpting the back part. However, for this, there's a few different ways we can do this. I'll demonstrate on the other one as well. We can use the edge that we have selected here, and we can just duplicate this. You can see it's duplicated, and just press P to separate that selection there. Now we can use this, convert it to a curve. And once we have curve, we can go to the curve options and just give it a bit of depth here. So that's way too much. So I'm going to go with something like 0.001. Let's see. And that should be a bit too small maybe. So let's just go back to it. Let's just go back and let's see. 0.03. And that looks perfect. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to scale this just in a bit, so it's not completely on top of that, but more or less looks like it's going inside of the mesh. Just like that. And just remember, once you do that, you just want to convert it back to a mesh as well. And once that's done, we can just Control J and then just join that to objects. Now with the next one, and just go to, no, let's start with edge select. And we just select the same edges again. Now for this one, we're gonna just use a bevel and then just give it one segment. Just get the same width on this as with the previous one, more or less like that. With it selected, go to face mode, and then just hit Alt extrude along normals, and then we can just extrude that a little bit. Go back to object mode. There you can see we've got this, and just to make that a little smoother, we the subdivide surface. And just to get a sharper edge on this, we're gonna just go to the edge select, and just select the sharp edges here. With the edges selected, we can just give it a slight bevel again. Just a small bevel like this. Alright, and now for this one, we're gonna just do the same effort again. Now that that's done, let's take this one. We're just gonna duplicate this, and then just turn on snapping again and snap that to the position. There we go. Alright, so with that in position, the only thing left to do still is to put the back part. So we need the pillows, the cushions for the back, and I'm just going to use this one. Gonna duplicate it. Just turn off snapping again. Just go into the side view. You can turn on your wireframe mode, and then just rotate it into the position that it's going to be, and we can just place it where it's supposed to be, just a bit more on the rotation. And then of course we want to scale this. I'm just going to delete this, so just hover over the part you want to select, select L, and that will select all the parts connected to that part. So we can just delete that part for now. Alright, so as you can see here at the back, it's still got a bit of flatness. However, we want it to be a bit more pillow-like, and the thickness of it is also a bit too much. So let's just bring that down a bit. So just scale on Z. Alright, so with that done, let's select it and then just duplicate it twice. And we don't want this back part to be as flat, so we can just sculpt on that. Let's just smooth out some of these parts. And as you can see, it will automatically start picking up some shape again. Go to face select, select some of these faces in the middle, and turn on proportional editing. Alright, so then we can just scale that. I think right around there should be fine. Alright, so I've added a beading for him and all the other ones, so I think it's time to just do a bit of variation and to add those folds that we see in the reference image right there. You can see it's not a lot of folds, so it should be easy. Select the one you want to work on, and then we go back to sculpting again. So for this, we're gonna just use the draw tool and just change the radius to something small. That should work. So we're just gonna add, subtract, and smooth. And as you can see, yeah, it makes a big difference. Just having that bit of folds. You see, it's not too extreme, it's just enough. Just to keep in line with the reference image that we have here. And now something else we need, of course, is some legs for this object. And as we can see here on the reference image, it's just a plain circle. Just scroll out, yeah. Where is our image? There we go. You can see it's just a small little circle. Nothing major. So for that, of course, we're just going to use just a cylinder, and we can just scale the cylinder down. Get it more or less in position. Just scale down again, and it's got a little bit of a it just comes together a little bit here in the bottom, so just select that face and just scale that face in just a bit. Use the mirror modifier, and if you're happy with the results, you can just apply. Just make sure everything is applied on every piece of mesh. And this one we can just delete. We got this one now, so we can just duplicate and move it in position. Yeah, let's move it back a bit. We're just gonna add the clamping and then snap it into position. We are basically done with the modeling of the couch, so now we just have to add some materials. For that, I'm going to export it to Substance Painter, and then we can continue from there. I'll re-import the textures and then show you how to add the textures back into Blender again. Alright, so now we want to get into the texturing of the object, and to do that we're going to first need UVs. So let's quickly run through the UVs. I'm going to select this one. And then we're just gonna right click and mark a seam. Select all, go to your UV editing. As you can see, this was the previous UVs. We're just gonna hit U and unwrap again. And there we have the UVs. Okay, so the faces weren't working here. So I just delete the faces, and then I'm just gonna add some loop cuts inside here. Just to the same size. Select the whole edge loop, go to face, and then just hit grid fill. That will fill in those faces again. Alright, so for the base, just get it alone. Okay, and so for the bottom part of the couch, I just put a seam right through the top layer. And on the sides, as you can see, all the sides there, and I left the bottom part. So it just unwraps nicely, and when you select all, this is what it should look like. Alright, so I just quickly ran through all these, Alright, so I quickly ran through all the UVs, I'll show you now. If you look at them, yeah, you can see this is where I cut it. Let me just go back there. This is where you can see all the cuts have been made. This is where the seams have been marked for the unwrapping, and if you select all, you can see it's unwrapped and packaged into one tile. However, I think we're going to use two tiles because on the second one, just go to edit, you see I've got it in the second tile, otherwise it's too cramped. To get a second tile, just go into edit mode. And then yeah, under UDIM, you can just change the amount of UDIMs that you need. Alright, so select both objects and then go to File, Export, FBX, and you can just create a project there. And remember to tick selected objects and hit export. Alright, and in Substance Painter, we can just open a new file and select that same folder that we just created, the same object, the FBX. And you can create it in any resolution you want. I'm going to use 4K, OpenGL, and that's all. I'm going to say OK. Once it's loaded in, we've got both UVs. Alright, so if we start painting, you can see everything works smoothly. However, what we can do as well is just to go up here and select bake. And we can just bake these maps. And now that the maps are baked, and we can see here on the ambient occlusion map, It's a bit rough there, so I'm just gonna go here over to the shader settings, and I'm just gonna take the intensity of the ambient occlusion map just down a bit, and then I'm just gonna change this to high as well. We can close that back up. I'm just gonna use the smart materials, and in the smart materials I'm just gonna look for lever, and I think this one should work fine. So I'm gonna select it, drag it into the layers, and as you can see everything is added. Create a black mask for this, and go over to the selection item, the polygon fill, and I'm gonna use the mesh fill. And with everything selected, we can go out of the black mask, and I think we're gonna have to scale this up a bit. And you can see some of the faults has generated as well automatically. For now, we're just gonna switch that off, and we're gonna go to the lever base. I think we want a darker material on the lever, maybe something like this. That should be good. Let's close that, and then just scale the tiling in a bit. Just like that, and now you can see we've got the lever material. All the other settings we're going to leave the same. And we just open up the faults again. As you can see, it's creating a bunch of faults everywhere. We don't need this, so we're just gonna remove the layer. And now the final part is just to get the material for the legs. And there you can see we've got some feet on the couch. We've got the couch, and we are ready to export the textures again back into Blender. Alright, so to do that, we just go over to File, Export Textures. Select your folder, and everything should be fine, and you can just export. Just save your file, and once in Blender, we can just go back to Layout. Let's just get an item back again. Right, and then we can go into the shading. Alright, so just select the pillows for now. We're gonna create a new material, Principle BSDF, just hover over that, and then select Shift Control T. This will bring up our folder that we saved our materials to. So now we just want to select the materials that we need. It's 001, 001, 001, 1, and 1. Just be sure not to select the other ones. These are from the secondary UV set. So we're just going to import these ones. As you can see, everything is imported exactly the same as it was on Substance Painter. So now we can select the base again, exact same thing, Shift Control T, and we select all the other maps. And create. Alright, so now we've got the materials imported, and there we have the couch done. I'm just going to add this to a scene with some lighting, and then we can go ahead and render. Alright, so now you can just import your couch to any scene. As you can see, I've got a scene set up, and I've got a camera set up. Just hit 0 to go into camera mode. And now we can just render. I'm using the following settings in cycles, and then I'm just rendering at 512 max samples, and with denoise activated, and the denoise is set to open image denoise. Alright, so we can just render this, and then we are done. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you with the next video.